Bart Frazier has been the program director at the Future Freedom Foundation since 2001 and is in charge of all our programs, including our op-ed program, where we send our articles out to thousands of newspapers across the country. And he's also in charge of all of our internet activity, including the maintenance and updating of our website. He's also responsible for putting out every single day, 6 days a week, our FFF email update. He's in charge of collecting the editorial cartoons and then inputting all the articles we put there. So it's a real task that he accomplishes for us. The truth is that we really could not do our business without Bart. Several years ago, when he was a graduate student at George Mason University in the economics department, which, as you all know, is very free market, Austrian-oriented, he came to work with us as an intern. And Alicia's been with me some 13 years or so, we immediately recognized that this guy's just great. He's one of those people that just, takes the responsibility to do a job. You don't have to monitor him. And we started talking amongst ourselves, if only he would leave the graduate program and become full-time with us. And sure enough, he broached us with that idea, and we were ecstatic. And he's become indispensable for us. When he goes on vacations, he leaves this gaping hole in our operations, and he hasn't gotten the message yet. I keep telling him that even though he's allotted a certain amount of vacation time, that doesn't mean he has to take it. And Bart's also a great Renaissance man. That he regals us with how he tears down his car engine totally, rebuilds it back up. He's one of the most proficient bird watchers you've ever seen. As he and Alicia gaze out the window, often if there's a red-tailed hawk going by or whatever. So he's a real pleasure to be around. His latest project is he's becoming almost a semi-professional surfer, which he just picked up from scratch a couple years ago and has already risen, I think, to the top of the surfing world. So it's just a lot of fun to have Bart around. We're really, really lucky. The title of his talk is Foreign Policy and the Constitution.
Thank you. Sharing all my secrets. Before I begin, first I'd like to thank everybody in this room. We've had a wonderful weekend. I think everybody here could agree, and it would not be possible without all the attendees and all the speakers here. So thank you very much. A big round of applause for everybody. Thank you. Foreign policy and civil liberties, the topic of this conference, of course. These are two areas of our lives where most people in this room would agree that the state has a valid role to play. Protecting the country from invasion and securing individual rights are two of the vital functions of the federal government. But at the same time, we know that our own government can be the greatest threat to our freedom. It was this problem that the U.S. Constitution was designed to address. In the United States, the Constitution is the primary connection between the individual and the state. It is the law of the land and the document that trumps all others in determining what the state can and cannot do. The Constitution was designed to protect us, the people, from the government. It is the government, however, that has advanced an overactive foreign policy, and it is the American people who now feel the adverse effects of the resulting blowback. It is the government that violates our civil liberties, and it is the individual who feels the effects of government surveillance, detention, torture, and even murder. The relationship between the individual and the state is a problem that has been with us since we have had government. Governments have been abusing and killing their citizens since men began to rule over other men. R.J. Rummel, a professor of political science at the University of Hawaii, estimates that between war, genocide, state-induced famines, and the like, Governments across the globe have been responsible for the deaths of more than 262 million people in the 20th century alone. 262 million people. As Rummel states, if all these people were laid head to toe, they would circle the earth 10 times. If the state's treatment of the individual can be described in one word, it undoubtedly would be violence. This leaves us, the individuals, with a conundrum. We want the state to protect us from invasion, theft, and murder, but we don't want it killing us or sending us to occupy other countries to kill others. The Constitution was the framers' way of solving this dilemma. Wrong glass. The Constitution formed a national government that provided for the common defense while simultaneously protecting the individual from that very government it had just brought into existence. It was acknowledged that individual rights, or natural rights, precede the existence of the government and are inherent. Any government action that violated these rights was illegitimate. For those who cherished liberty, the Constitution was the closest that man had come to perfecting government. It attempted to restrict the power of the government while retaining the rights of the individual. A common misconception is that the Constitution grants us our rights. High school students are routinely asked what rights the First Amendment grants them. This question is absolutely wrong, an error itself. The Constitution does not grant the people any rights. Rights are inherent and inalienable. The Constitution only protects these rights. Rights that precede all forms of government, rights that all of us would still retain were we to be living under no government whatsoever. In order to protect these rights, the founders wanted to make it as explicit as possible what the government could and could not do. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution lists the powers that Congress could legally exercise. If a power was not enumerated in that list, Congress could not legally perform it. The meaning of this enumerated powers doctrine has long been lost on citizens and politicians alike. But there is absolutely no question that this is what the founders intended to do. Thomas Jefferson wrote in 1817, "Congress has not unlimited powers to provide for the general welfare, but only those specifically enumerated." James Madison, father of the Constitution, wrote at the Virginia Convention when trying to ratify the Constitution in June 1788, "The powers of the federal government are enumerated. It can only operate in certain cases. It has legislative powers on defined and limited objects beyond which it cannot extend its jurisdiction." And even embedded into the Constitution itself was a provision to reaffirm what Article 1, Section 8 already implied, the 10th Amendment, which reads, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people." The Bill of Rights, which of course the 10th Amendment is a part, was not even thought necessary by some of the framers, because the enumerated powers doctrine made it clear that the federal government had extremely limited, well-defined powers, none of which, of course, includes violating our civil liberties. But it was the anti-federalists who were adamant that the Bill of Rights be adopted. And it is a good thing they did, because the concept of enumerated powers implied in Article 1, Section 8, has been a vestigial part of the Constitution for well over a century now. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution have been the bulwark against the government that has allowed us to retain what freedom we still hold on to today.